Hello and welcome to a Friday night live stream with Yo Samdy Sam. Before we get started, let's just do a regular test. Can you all hear me? Let's just check that my mic is working. So please just indicate in the comments or in the what's it called? The live chat that you're all in, that you can hear me. I can't hear you, of course, which is what I was going to say. So welcome. Oh my gosh, there's so many people already. All the comments coming flooding in. I will try to keep up. This is going to be like a more chill vibe, I think, because firstly, I've not had a great week. And secondly, like sometimes I feel like I try to over entertain. And I think that gives me kind of anxiety. I mean, it's pretty difficult being live on the internet. But so I'm just going to try and like have a nice chat, take things slowly. It's not going to be like super must be on the game all the time. I'm going to have a look at some of the messages and try and interact a little bit more and just chill. I hope that's all right with everybody. Some people say chill is nice, actually. Hold on. Where is everybody from today? We have got, I'm just going to read out some places. Somebody's first time on my live. Hello. And now you're immortalized in the live now. We've got somebody from Pennsylvania. Hello. We have got somebody from Oregon. Hello. We've got someone from Denmark. This is fun. This is way more fun than like concentrating on anything. That we got someone from Ireland and Scotland. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this way too fast. This is me getting carried away. No, I promised I'd be chill. So, hello, Basic Beth from Scotland. We have got somebody from Portugal. Just waiting for me to click on somebody with an inappropriate thumbnail, right? And I have to awkwardly remove it. We've got someone from Prague, from Belgium, from Liverpool, San Antonio, Texas, Scotland, an Australian in Norway. So we are global today, and that's really nice to see. And of course, we've got representation from Brazil, my wonderful assistant and moderator tonight. So don't be naughty in the chat, people. So today, wow, God, I've just seen this 190 people watching. That's really cool. The quote that I found, I don't know where I found this quote. I probably just typed in quotes into the internet, which is how I do most of my research. The flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long. And I thought that was particularly relevant tonight. I was actually planning to have like candles and stuff behind me as a sort of visual metaphor for burnout, but then I thought that maybe that's overkill and like I don't need to joke about everything. I amuse myself. So today's topic is almost as cheery as my recent video on trauma. So I've lightened the mood. I did have herbal tea. I'm now drinking water. I think that drinking wine would set the wrong tone, although I do have herbal wine, which is interesting. It's called blood wine. I don't know if it's a Dutch thing or not, but anyway, not drinking that tonight, drinking water. And I've also noticed that my jumper unintentionally matched the thumbnail that I put on several weeks ago. So that's kind of cool and serendipitous and all of that kind of stuff. So before I get started, I just want to shout out to all my members who are here and the new ones who just signed up that I am trying to keep track of when this chat keeps going down, because it's going pretty quickly. What was I even saying? This is the problem. I'm still having brain problems, which we'll talk about later, maybe. Concentration problems. Running a live chat is actually quite difficult because you have to concentrate on what you're saying. You have to make sure that all the tech is set up correctly. I do have some notes. I have the live chat and I also have the Discord in the background as well. So it's really a concentration issue, but yes, give me patience. Right. Blood wine is Klingon. Oh, it's called bloedwijn, which I don't know whether that's just a Dutch thing or if that's an English translation, or the person who did something to do with Klingon was Dutch, perhaps. Anyway, let's get on to the topic tonight. You didn't come here to hear me waffle, or did you? Oh, I'm already hyping myself up now. This is terrible. Okay, so let's talk about autistic burnout because we're several minutes in already. So this is something that I think probably the majority of autistic people experience at some point. And I feel like it's so common. It's like a core component of being autistic. So what actually is it? You may have heard of burnout before, but what is autistic burnout? And this is basically a prolonged period of intense physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. Exhaustion, that's a hard word to say, ranging from lasting like a couple of weeks to a month, or it can even last for years or decades. I don't want to, I don't want to depress anyone, because a lot of people here, they're looking for hope, and I don't want to be like, it will last for decades. It can last for decades, but I'll get to the reasons why it might do, in a bit. The fact that you're here means that you probably will find strategies to cope with it. So that's a good thing. So this period of exhaustion is sometimes accompanied by a loss of skills. For example, autistic children might appear to regress, although I don't like that term because it implies that development is linear. It implies this kind of linear progression, and then you go backwards. So like a previously speaking child might stop communicating in the kind of socially demanded way, like speech or something. But loss of skills can also apply to adults. And you wouldn't say that an adult has regressed because they're demonstrably an adult. And for adults, this can be to an extent where you might appear to function less well. And I'm going to stay away from functioning labels because I think this is relevant to functioning labels, because the main issue I have with functioning labels is that I think that autistic people function differently throughout different periods of their life. And we'll come back to that with the sort of the peaks and the troughs of autistic burnout and periods of depression and stuff like that. But functioning labels, there are some periods in my life where I've functioned very well and some periods in my life where I have not. And so that's why you can't just say this person is high functioning or low functioning, because it varies, and it's sort of like the tides, if you will. So along with possible loss of skills, during an autistic burnout, you might find that you are increasingly sensitive to stimuli that didn't bother you beforehand. So you might be very intolerant to noise, light, well, any sensory stimuli, really. You just find that things like that bother you more than they did, and you can't cope with it. And I would say that my experience is mostly sound that overwhelms me, but we'll get onto that later. There are also quite a few cognitive changes that may happen during a period of autistic burnout. For example, speech might become harder, and I don't know how many of you will have seen one of the first videos that I did on my channel. It was called something like things I struggle with as an autistic person, like my autistic struggles, something like this. I think it was the second video that's public on this channel. Now you're wondering what's private, aren't you? So if you look at that video, you will notice that I am struggling to form sentences because that video was not scripted. I'd done bullet points. That was before I realized if I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to have to script it. Otherwise, people aren't going to sit there and watch me going, anyway, so that period of my time, I had just come out of basically a burnout period, and that was brought on by sleep deprivation, a really bad period, a poor period of sleep from my son. And I just completely lost the ability to form sentences. And that's something that has happened as a result of becoming a mother as well, which we'll talk about motherhood and burnout, autistic burnout, also a little bit later. I wrote notes for this live, and normally I write notes, and it's like 1 or 2 pages, sometimes 3. And I have 7 pages of notes. So we're either going to be here a while, or I'm going to have to do more videos on this topic. And I think I will do more videos because I started writing and I was like, this is the core of the autistic struggle, of the autistic experience. This is very, very important. So fear not, especially if you missed this, or, I have to run out suddenly halfway through. We will come back to this topic. So in addition to speech becoming more difficult, just not feeling like you can word. You can't think of the right word. You can't form sentences. You're kind of stuck. Other cognitive skills might be affected, such as decision-making, executive functioning. That's another big one with me. Memory issues, even. You might find your mood changes, and you might find that if you are an autistic who did a lot of masking, you previously seemed normal to the outside world, not autistic, you might start displaying more obviously autistic traits, and people might go, like, are you faking being autistic because you didn't used to do that? But you might just start displaying it because you're not masking as much. So as you can imagine, it's a very big deal for us. And the problem is it's pretty much unheard of outside of these comforting online circles. And even autistic people don't know that much about it. So there is very little research. There is barely any research done into autistic burnout specifically. There is very little written to help us guide us out of burnout, because everything that refers to burnout without specifically being autistic burnout is talking about a neurotypical version, which I will also come to later. So I've just been reading on my notes. So I've not been paying attention to the chat. Let's have a look and see what people have been saying. So let me have a look, because I'm blathering on, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, people are chatting and they might want me to talk to them. So Autumn says here, autistic burnout is how I discovered I was autistic. It was a true eye-opener. And that for me is extremely true as well, because when I had that light bulb moment, I was like 4 months postpartum, and all throughout pregnancy, I'd basically been in autistic burnout and kind of like continuing after having a child because it's exhausting. So that was how I realized that I was autistic, because it exacerbated my autistic traits that had always been there, but it was like I couldn't ignore them anymore. Let's have a look and see what... There are a lot of people who are writing who are in the middle of a major burnout, and I hope that things are okay. I also want to remind you that this year is unusually stressful for various reasons. So, you're not alone. It's something that's happening to a lot of us. And I've been kind of like on and off the brink of burnout. The only reason I haven't burnt out is just sheer force of will and like realizing that I'm burning out and taking steps to avoid it. And that is something that I will also come to later. I'm like later. But we've got some pages of notes to get through. Corvinai, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, says, I literally had to stop working, move home, and just self-care and rest. Social assistance helped. And this is a very good point that I will also make about myself avoiding burnout, is that the Netherlands has a very good support system for autistic adults. I have had an autistic coach for a year and a half now, something like that. And I also have had psychological support, which is specifically for autistic people post-burnout. And I also have a little bit of municipality support in household areas. So I get a lot of support compared to some countries. And that is definitely something that has made a big impact on my ability to cope. So let me have a look and see. Somebody sent me a super sticker, but I can't see what it is because I'm in my streaming software, so I'm really sad. Well, I'm sure it's a cute sticker. Thank you, Anna. Right, now I'm completely losing track on this. See, isn't it much better when I have a guest and we can just talk and I'm not like, No, I said I'd be chill. Right. So Gary says, I use CBT to help with my Asperger's, but CBT is not a cure for autism like masking isn't. So after using all this coping techniques, I get tired and burnt out. Neurotypicals just naturally think neurotypicals. And yeah, this is the thing that I mentioned in my trauma video. I think that CBT is not designed with autistic people in mind. It can work for autistic people. It can also not work very well. So when we're thinking about burnout and strategies for that, it's not as simple as just take some time off work and rest. And that's kind of why I ended up with so many pages of notes. Mandy Lord says, I find it much more difficult to recover from burnout as a mother. And I think that that is very true. I keep on vaguely hinting at motherhood. I promise I'll get to it. But motherhood is nonstop. And so the thing about, well, motherhood or parenthood is that you can never catch up to yourself. Kind of like you can never get that break, because as soon as you have 2 hours and you feel relaxed, and maybe the child comes back into your house and you're like, ah. So you just never get the opportunity to have that time that you need to rest in that space and peace and quiet. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think that autistic burnout and motherhood, autistic motherhood, kind of go together a lot of the time. Right. Okay. So I've read some comments. Blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about how it's different to regular burnout, because it is becoming a term that more and more people recognize, especially in the Netherlands, where I don't know, it's a recognized psychological disorder, but it's a thing that your doctor can sign you off for work. You can be signed off with burnout, and a lot of people I know actually have. And I used to take the piss out of it. I thought, oh, burnout, that's like because they can't handle work or whatever. Like they don't know what it's like to, I don't know, work hard. I don't know. I used to think it was like this funny thing, and it's obviously not. Like, obviously I've matured. Have I though? But regular burnout, when it's spoken about just burnout, is specifically a workplace or work-related phenomenon. And that's not to say that it's not a problem that can also have severe repercussions if it's not managed. But autistic burnout is not always based around workplace stress, and it's more like life stress. And the difference is that it also takes less stuff or different stuff to get there. So it's something that neurotypical people would not consider that would be cause for burning out, can be a trigger or a contributing factor to burnout for an autistic person. So neurotypicals don't experience this outside the workplace, because if they do, it's called something else, I imagine. Except I can imagine neurotypicals who are in like a carer's role. So either they're a parent caring for maybe a disabled child, so they might be working non-stop. I think that might be a situation where a neurotypical person might experience burnout, but essentially they are still working. So now, of course, autistic people can get regular work burnout, like everyone, but we can also burn out for a variety of additional reasons. And this might be including masking or camouflaging. Sorry, I can't. For some reason, I lost the ability to talk when I was scratching my face. I'm like, I need to do this first, and then I can talk. Masking or camouflaging is extremely energy intensive. And I think the energy required to do it is part of the reason why it can be a contributing factor to burnout, because it just takes so much out of us, Overstimulation or unsuitable sensory environments. And this would be like in a workplace, school, or home setting. And I would say like bullying, but maybe even low-level bullying. So like unsatisfactory social relationships, being around people you don't like even. And obviously all of these things kind of like, it's not one thing, but they all add up. And especially if you don't know you're autistic, they can build up over a lifetime. And that's where it ends up in the situation where you've been masking. You might be very successful actually at your life, and you've been masking and nobody would even suspect you're autistic, but you have been autistic all this time. And then you hit, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, and you burn out. And I think it's those situations where you end up in a very prolonged state of autistic burnout. But, it's any point in life where the ongoing environment is chronically hostile to the autistic person. And so for me, how I understand it, or how I would like to explain it, and please don't think that I am like the ultimate authority on this. As I said, there isn't that much research. And it's obviously going to be different for different people. So I'm drawing on the research that I have done and my own experiences, talking to other people's experiences. But the way I see it is that autistic burnout is the result of things that are specifically stressful to autistic people that present as chronic stress to the body, mind, or, chronic emotional stress, often combined with things that might also be considered stressful to non-autistic people. So things that, what do regular people find stressful? Changing jobs, losing your jobs, divorce, moving house, breakups, having a child, like all of these things are stressful events. And I can't remember what it's called, but you can search. There is a kind of ranking of the most stressful life events. So you can have a look and, if you score over a certain amount in the last year, it's like, yes, you're very stressed. And so all of these things obviously happen to autistic people as well. And I think they probably are important in regards to the burnout things, because, everyday life comes with stress. But the thing that makes the autistic burnout more difficult to get out of is that the stress might not be recognized, or the cause of the stress might not be recognized by the people around them. So, for example, overstimulation, chronic overstimulation. I know someone who has moved house and lives in an apartment building where, the noise, it's not necessarily loud in terms of decibels, but it's kind of irritating noise. And this kind of like constant agitating noise. A neurotypical person might say, well, what's the big deal? Just ignore it, kind of thing. But an autistic person obviously can't. And that has really severe repercussions for their life. And so that's kind of the difference. And I hope that I'm explaining this right. Send me some signs that that you're all getting this, because like the chat's just going on. I can't even with the chat. You guys are great. So if you want to know what a burnout looks or feels like, you probably will start to recognize a lot of similarities with what we think of as depression. Because an autistic burnout from the outside and also from the inside can look a lot like depression. You might be exhausted. I've already mentioned the exhaustion. You might find that you are having more frequent meltdowns or shutdowns, irritability or loss of connection from others, including safe people, and irritability. God, I can't say that word. Irritability. That's definitely something that is part of my burnout. And that was something that over the summer, when I took a break off making videos on YouTube, at least, because I found myself getting irritable at things that were not intrinsically annoying. So for me, obviously I'm in a kind of unique situation for an autistic person. There's not that many autistic people that are have a big social media following. No, actually there probably are autistic people with social media followings, but specifically about autism as well makes it more stressful, because I obviously get a lot of messages, and I found myself getting really annoyed by the nice messages that people would send me. And, somebody would send me a nice message like, I love your videos. And I'd be like, oh God, why do they want me to talk to them? And I would get really super irritated. Sorry, one sec. I'm getting distracted by notifications now. That was an important one, maybe. I would get really super irritated. Have I lost sound or something? Have I lost sound? I'm just checking. I hope not. I'm getting a lot of frantic calls now. Oh, somebody can hear me. Okay. Everyone can hear the sound. So Okay. All right. I'm just getting, never mind, don't worry. Sorry, I'm so confused now. Right. That totally freaked me out because the moderator of this chat called me on Discord and I just basically freaked out. And it was because I'd not seen a super chat, but hold on, let me go. I'm going to read this one out because So the super chat said that I missed, and I'm really sorry. I don't think autistic burnout is avoidable in a world designed for neurotypicals. Also, thank you so much for all you do. So thank you so much to Ms. Tree, and I'm really sorry that I missed your super chat. It's not appearing on my thing. So, do you know what? This is the whole distraction thing. Like I see something, and then all of a sudden I'm panicking. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's have a look. So yeah, I was talking about the irritability and how people would send me nice messages. Look, I'm doing that again. I was like a little bit irritated that somebody sent me a nice message on the super chat. This is something that it's taken me months to kind of like come down from not even being fully burned out, just being almost burned out. Vagabond says, don't be distracted. You can choose to stay focused. Thank you. I probably have ADHD unmedicated, but thank you. I will choose to stay focused right now. Oh, hello. Right. So the irritability kind of goes hand in hand with anxiety, and anxiety is kind of one thing, but also this feeling of constantly being on edge. And along with anxiety, irritability, and being on edge, of course, comes sleep problems. And once you have sleep problems, that exacerbates the whole thing, doesn't it? Because once you're not sleeping, you're not resting. And especially if you're sleeping, but you're not sleeping well, and that's not really something that you can control is the quality of your sleep. So all of these things, it can be very hard to differentiate from depression. Obviously, a good professional will be able to help with this. Somebody who obviously knows about autistic burnout, because if they don't know what autistic burnout is, they're not going to know whether you're depressed or whether you're burnt out. And I think you need to know before you start medicating potentially, because, if you're not depressed, then, what is the purpose of taking the medication? Well, I don't know. Let's not talk about medication right now. But the difference between regular burnout and I'll call it neurotypical depression, the depression as described in psychological literature, is that depression typically develops in all parts of your life. The difference between regular burnout, as in neurotypical burnout, and neurotypical depression is that depression is like all encompassing all parts of your life. You wake up, you think, what is the point, kind of thing. And the burnout is specific to one area, but of course they can occur together, and one usually predicts the other. So if you've been depressed before in life, you are more likely to burn out. And this is for neurotypical people. But there's not a lot of information or research out there about autistic burnout and autistic depression, probably because a lot of what we see as autism symptoms are the result of burnout or depression in us, or the result of autistic people under stress. So let me just reiterate that point, that a lot of what we think is how autistic people are, we're actually seeing an autistic stress response. And I'm trying to think of an example. I didn't write one down in my notes, and I can't think of one on the fly. So that's not very helpful, is it? So we don't anywhere have a really clear picture or good idea of what a mentally healthy autistic person looks like. We don't know that. We don't know that from research. I think the autistic people I know are just desperately trying to avoid burnout all the time. So it seems like you never meet an autistic person who's like, I'm thriving and I'm living my best life, and all of that. It seems like there's always struggle. And I feel like I've been recommended a lot of YouTube videos right now about people moving to cabins in remote areas of Sweden. I don't know why. I guess YouTube has got me like in a niche or something. And I feel sometimes like my best chance of happiness and avoiding burnout is to live a very isolated existence in nature with people that I like. Sorry, I'm going to say, Anna, please stop messaging me. It's really distracting. Let's go to back to the chat. The moderator said that whoever sent the super chat thought that she offended me, and absolutely did not offend me. I can't see some of the super chats on my streaming thing, and I'm really, really sorry. Please, yes, I just wanted to clarify that. Now I'm like, I'm sorry, I've been offending people. I'm really sorry. Thank you so much, Mel, for your generous super chat. That's really kind of you, and thank you to Ms. Tree as well. I'm sorry. Do you know what? I was mostly annoyed by the fact that I was getting notifications from somebody that it like puts me in a bad frame of mind. And this is actually, I'm wondering whether I'm like mildly on the verge of burnout again. So this is a very, oh God, do you know what? I really can't. I can choose to focus, but that does not mean that it will happen. I promise you. So, I'm trying to find this. Oh, okay. So, Ms. Tree, I just wanted to clarify this because I was not talking about you when I said getting a nice comment annoyed me. I promise you, I was not talking about you. I was talking about in July when I was like verging on burnout, people would send me messages and I would just be really super annoyed about it. And that was one of my signs that I was beginning to burn out. I was not talking. See, I'm autistic and I have a habit of putting my foot in my mouth by saying things that don't communicate what I mean very well. So, but I really appreciate you talking. Okay, well, this is super awkward, isn't it? I just want you guys to know that I'm just as awkward as you would expect in real life. Right. James says, we can all relate, Sam. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you all relate to my super, super awkwardness. Rob wants me to compose myself. Do you know what? It's just been a really difficult week. I'll talk about my week, actually. So I have a condition called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I will be working on a video about this, actually, but essentially it's like supercharged PMS, and it is more commonly diagnosed in autistic people. So yeah, basically it means that for, I would say 1 week out of the month, but actually more than that because the hormonal changes kind of add up. Like I just have horrible symptoms and mostly psychological symptoms. I don't know how to take this comment off now. It seems like it's kind of awkward. Let's put a heart on then. People want me to take a break. I'm taking a break. I'm telling you about PMDD. And so basically, for me, it involves 1 day of like wishing I was completely obliterated from this earth. And that's not the same as, it's not exactly suicidal thoughts, but it's just like I wish myself out of existence. And that's 1 day. And now that I know what that is, and I know that it's 1 day, when that day comes around, I just kind of ignore it. I'm like, fine, wish yourself out of existence, see if I care, kind of thing, you know, this internal dialogue. But basically this week, I don't know why this month has been particularly bad, but it's just been very bad from a hormonal perspective. And like I've just been trying to get off my phone, get off Instagram and stuff. Things have been difficult with my child. He's been stressed as well. He's been like having these like, meltdowns and stuff. So, you know, I think I may be sort of like heading towards burnout if I don't take the steps. But at the moment, I'm just trying to take the steps and like waiting for the hormones to settle down. So let's I don't know what you mean, Anna, by inviting you to help with the chat because, I think, hold on. Let me just copied. I don't know if this will even work. Let's see. Yeah, I said that this was going to be chill, and now I'm getting already like tense and stuff. So let me go back to my notes and stuff, because a lot of you are asking stuff that I actually have plenty of notes written down about. So we've talked about my theory that we don't really know what mentally healthy autistic people look like. If you look at the hashtag autistic joy online, that is a really nice one to follow, especially on Instagram, maybe on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but Autistic Joy is really nice. Just it's like a bunch of autistics happy, stimming and flapping and, doing nice autistic things. But maybe that's a start. Maybe that should be like a campaign or something to try and encourage people to share their happiness, their good lives, their good parts of their lives. So I've got another quote for you, but I don't have a nice little intro for this one. So I just wanted to say, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And that is a quote by a man called Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was in, I think he's dead. Yeah, I think he died quite a while ago. But so no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, and that is a very important point relating to autistic people, even though it's not about them. But I'm just making up my own, philosophy here, because I feel like autistic people might just be the canaries in the coal mine, as it were. And I think that quite often we can be the first indicators that something isn't right in the environment. So, for example, we would be very sensitive to harsh sensory stuff that when they start getting worse, so when there's a lot of fluorescent lights or a lot of sound, neurotypical people would then start also getting sick as in, getting burnt out, getting weary and exhausted from. But because we're so much more sensitive, it's like we're the first to notice that. So I've got these notes that are very mysterious to me right now about autism and depression. Not autism and depression. Autistic burnout versus depression in autistic people. And, I'm not even really sure about that. I've had periods of what I considered depression in my life. And I have also have had periods that I really now consider to be autistic burnout. So, for example, when I first went self-employed in 2012, I went self-employed and I was just really eager to prove myself immediately. And I went self-employed for a variety of reasons related to probably burning out at work, ironically. And then I decided that I was going to self-publish a book. And it was September, and I was like, well, I like Christmas recipes, so I'm going to self-publish a Christmas book. Okay. And so some of you who have any idea about publishing are probably like, Sam, honey, please. But I did. I stopped work in August, and then I pretty much started on the book at the 1st of September, and then I had the book published. I think I got the copies in November, late November. So I developed the recipes, I tested the recipes, I wrote the book, I edited the book, I published the book in the space of about 2 months. And then, of course, I'd spent no time marketing it, didn't know how to market, barely sold any copies, and then spent like 5 months burnt out, basically. And obviously I had no idea how to pace myself. And that's kind of like a very extreme example, but that was a very clear, I'd built up with all this activity and then I'd burnt out. So comparing that to other periods of my life where I'd been depressed, there were different reasons. And I think it's the reasons and the things that lead up to it. That is how you determine the difference between burnout and depression, autistic burnout and depression. Every time I'm going to have to say autistic burnout so I don't accidentally refer to neurotypical burnout. So somebody said, what's the book called? It's offline now. It is offline because I had a bit of a freak out actually, because somebody ordered it and I hadn't noticed because I'd missed the email because I'm not checking the email account, and basically, please do not remind me. I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have mentioned it. But talking more about this idea of depression is kind of when gloom sets in. It's about feeling just like there's no hope, this hopelessness. And I think that for me, I only really want to talk about my own experiences because I don't want to generalize on this point, but for me, autistic burnout is more like exhaustion and not being able to keep up with anything, not being able to think properly, not being able to talk properly, maybe like today, accidentally offending people. I do that anyway, but and these kind of things. Whereas depression is like, I don't want to get out of my bed because what's the point? And you lose you lose motivation in both. For me, I would say I lose more motivation and just any value and joy and finding goodness in life. So I hope that is a kind of useful clarity, but bear in mind, this isn't me saying this is how it is and this is what depression is like and this is what autistic burnout is like, because I feel like it's different for everyone. I mean, the autistic spectrum is so broad anyway. And we need to do more research, and not just research because it's going to take probably years for the research to catch up with this, but we need to give a framework for people to talk about this. We need to find a way for people to share their experiences. I mean, everybody is welcome to start a YouTube channel, of course, and a lot of people there've been a lot of YouTube channels, and I think that is really helpful because it lets people express different sides of autism and the autistic experience that aren't just me telling people about that. So I don't really know what the solution is to it, other than we need to do more research and we need to talk about it more. I think we need to talk about it more, because it seems like every autistic person I know is kind of teetering on the edge of burnout and is having to really practice self-care on a very conscious level. Very self-aware, very conscious level to avoid creeping into it. I don't know how much of a difference there really is between depression in an autistic person and burnout in an autistic person, because it might be a part of the same thing. It might be a part of just an autistic life malaise or something. We don't know. I mean, we don't really know how to treat depression in neurotypical people either. People use antidepressants and they work for some people and they don't work for other people. And people do therapy and that works for some people and doesn't work for other people. But, other areas of science have come so far, and psychology is still so behind in terms of if psychology really worked consistently because it was based on science, then we should have a cure for mental disorders. But I think it doesn't take into account the fact that being depressed is not a mental disorder in itself. Being depressed is often a consequence of the environment, and that's whether you're a neurotypical or you're an autistic person. But understanding that you are autistic, and I think that a lot of undiagnosed autistic people go through a series of mental health crises throughout their lives, and then maybe eventually gets to a burnout point, which is when they eventually get their diagnosis. Excuse me. But I feel like understanding and really believing that you are autistic and this is a thing, this is not something that you made up in your head. Really coming to terms with that is crucial to heal and to healing your burnout and to preventing future burnouts. And if you don't believe me, talk to the people in chat, talk to autistic people about their experiences. and validate yourself through this realization. And this can be hard if you are not able to access a diagnosis, but you can validate yourself without a diagnosis. I'm giving you permission to right now. Do whatever you need to do to validate yourself, because feeling truly like you belong and feeling like, yes, I am autistic, that is something that's the key to going forward and making changes and avoiding future burnouts. So I've been talking an awful lot now. I'm going to have some water. Yeah, I mean, I also think that when you get to that point of, I've got my diagnosis, things are going to turn around, it's not just immediate. It's a very long process of reflection. It's a very exhausting process that could even contribute to burnout. Ironically enough, like the process of realizing who you are it's very emotionally draining, emotionally intense. So, it's, how long has it been since my diagnosis? January 2019. So, coming up to 2 years, and I still have not processed everything, because I have 3 decades to unpack. And I think time is a healer. There's a song in that, isn't there? I'm like, where have I heard that before? It's a song. Mira sent me a super chat. Thank you so much. I've known depression and recently learned about burnout. And in my perspective, they are related, but very different experience. And I think that's kind of what I was saying with my experience. They're related, but very different experience. That's a very good way of putting it. Thank you, Mira. Let me just see. Somebody asks me, do you watch School of Life channel? I love Alan de Botton to learn about psychology, trauma, depression. I used to, actually. I think I even went to an event at the School of Life in London many, many years ago, like 10 years ago. I don't like their YouTube channel because some of the stuff that it's very patronizing, and it's very exclusionary of anything but, like, I would say probably like the white male cis middle class viewpoint, that I can't remember why. I just remember that I saw a video and I was like, this is not right. And something annoyed me. Does anyone else ever get that feeling where you have bad associations with the whole thing because you know that something annoyed you, but you can't actually remember what it is about the thing? Anyway, I don't, is it Alan de Botton that runs the channel? I'm not sure. I can't remember. I can't remember much these days. I'm trying to focus. I don't know how to take this. The problem is I put one of these comments up on the bottom, and then the chat goes on, and then I need to actually press the comment again to get rid of it, and I can't hide it. So then I have to scroll up the chat to find it again. So let's see. Somebody says, I feel that way about School of Life YouTube also. Okay, that's good. That's good that it's not just me that thinks that. Somebody said condescending. I can't remember where the comment went. But yeah, it comes across a little bit like preachy, sort of like how, traditional Western philosophy comes across as a little bit preachy, inaccessible. It's like, doesn't really feel very true to me. So I don't know what this is in response to, but I appreciate the cheering on. Thank you. Somebody says, in the UK, they do a police card in South Yorkshire that tells them I'm autistic and how to deal with me when I'm overwhelmed. I find it validating and that I can portray the real me. It's scary. Yeah, we have a card in the Netherlands as well, which is called the Autipass. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a literal card. I am a card carrying autistic person. I don't know why that makes me laugh so much. And it's designed to show the police, or I don't know, professionals, maybe healthcare professionals who might come into contact with you, and help them explain how you might react and how you might want to be treated. For example, don't touch me kind of thing. And I think they're relatively useful. I do think they're useful, as long as they are obviously trained in what to do when somebody hands you this card. So definitely look them up to see if they are in your area. Let me go to, right. So my notes. I've come to the tips section. This isn't going to be a BuzzFeed style 11 handy tips to help you recover now, I'm afraid. All of the thoughts that I had a lot of thoughts. Oh, you could do this and this and this. And to be honest, it's probably more apt for a course, because even talking for probably like even 2 hours on here, I don't think it's going to be 2 hours tonight, but talking on a live like this, it's not enough to explain. It's not enough to just say, well, do this and this and this, and you'll be recovered from burnout, because burnout is insidious, and it builds up over a long time, and it takes a while to go away. I think this was something that they said about eating disorders as well, like anorexia. However long it took to develop the disorder is how long it's going to take you to recover. So obviously, if you've had this problem for 5 years, it'll take you another 5 years to recover. And I don't know how much that is. I don't know whether that's the same for autistic burnout. It sounds very even and equal. It sounds pleasingly coherent, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. And I think you can do quite a few things, not just to get out of burnout in the first place, but to decrease the likelihood of developing it. Unfortunately, none of these things are easy or necessarily simple. But I think that the first thing that you need to do is to recognize patterns in your life. And you need to understand that it's a slow process, and it's not like take a bath and rest and we'll see you at work on Monday. It's just not like that. So I like this kind of like intensive self-introspection kind of stuff. But recognizing patterns could involve a therapist. It doesn't necessarily need to. It could involve journaling or writing in a notebook, which you probably should, actually. I think that would be a helpful thing, especially if you haven't really journaled before, because it will help you remember stuff. It doesn't have to be a notebook. It can be online or something. Well, online, private. But and this is something that you could use when you start to realize or recognize or remember things. And if you are in a state of burnout, it can be difficult to get clarity, because you will have brain fog. And brain fog is something that I frequently get in burnout and during depression. And it's like you can't think. Your mind is it's like you're in a swimming pool full of pudding and you're trying to swim. That's how it feels in my mind. And that's also goes hand in hand with executive functioning issues. So when I get one of these feelings, the brain fog, the executive functioning goes as well. But if you feel this way about your life right now, you can try and look back in the past when you'd had periods of depression before. Maybe you've called them periods of depression because you didn't know about autistic burnout. The patterns might look something like peaks and troughs. You might think, okay, what are the times in my life when things were going really well and I was very energized, or things were just going okay? And what are the times in my life when I had really dark periods, as it were? And you can then start to see patterns from that. And the patterns might involve you recognizing, hey, during the summer, I'm very energetic. And during the winter, I tend to have like significant periods of depression. This is probably linked to seasonal affective disorder. That's kind of like just a very basic example of a pattern. Another pattern might be like every time you had a really big or abrupt change, you went into a period of depression or burnout. So for example, like leaving school or starting university or leaving university or moving in with someone or breaking up with someone, like all these big life changes that really disrupt the rhythm of your regular day-to-day life. So those are like the big picture pattern things. You can look back at your life and think about what were the times that didn't go well, what were the times that did go well, and try to just work out, try not to think, why did that happen? I don't know why that happened, but try to think, okay, what was happening at that time? Not just what was a trigger, but what was happening in the months before that time? What was building up to it? And I think that can be a really useful self-discovery kind of thing. If you can look at your life on a day-to-day basis, there are also patterns in your day-to-day life. So for example, if you work in a busy environment and you have to go take breaks throughout the day. When I was at school, actually, just remembered this when I was writing the notes. I remembered I used to ask to go to the toilet in the middle of a class and just sit in the toilet for a bit, take a break. So what are the stimuli throughout the day that make you duck out? Is it like you've been in the cafeteria and it's a lot of noise? Try and notice those daily patterns as well. Is it social overwhelm, or is it simulation like lights or noise? So how do I put this one? There's a super chat, but I can't put it on. Okay. Oh, here we go. So just had a super chat from Zalcian. Social life seems to burn me out very quickly, but I also need to see my loved ones and keep my social skills practiced. How do you maintain normal sociality and keep burnout in check? That's a very good question. And that word normal is also extremely loaded. So if social stuff burns you out, you can't maintain normal sociality. I mean, you need to see your loved ones, and that's a given, but you might need to see them in a different way that, that is on your terms and not on their terms. You might need to see them in a different environment. You also say keep your social skills practiced. I think that can be a contributing factor. This idea that you need to practice your social skills. We've all been kind of shut in our houses for a while now. And clearly my tact has, my ability to be tactful has plummeted. So there is something to be said for social skills, but I also think that you can't practice anything when you're burning out. And I think that managing burnout has to be the priority. I think I missed a super chat somewhere. I'm really sorry. Let me just have a look. This one can stay on the screen. No, I'll have to look in my, God, did I miss another one? I don't know why these are not appearing for me. I don't know why. I'm really sorry. So I'm just this one is from Minnow Coleman. Thank you, Minnow. And you say, I'm burnt out. I'm 31, but I feel like I'm regressing emotionally and with executive function, losing my short-term memory, being undiagnosed and not knowing personally 3 months ago. Do people ever not recover and stay regressed? This is a very loaded question, because I feel like, saying like you're in burnout and you've just had your diagnosis, that's a really difficult time in your life. And not just, it's difficult to deal with both of those things at the same time. I was lucky that I wasn't actually burnt out by the time I was diagnosed. So dealing with both at the same time, I think you just have to understand the enormity of what's just happened or what is happening. But I think that question, you say, do people ever not recover and stay regressed? I think that you absolutely can recover. I don't think that there's any like biological or scientific reason why you couldn't recover if you make the right adjustments. But the key is to knowing what those adjustments are. So I hope that was okay. Yeah, I can't. Oh no, I see it now, but I can't add it to the chat. I don't know. This whole streaming thing is being really funky today, and it's stressing me out. So I'm really sorry for the super chat people, but I really appreciate your chats. I wish I could just see. I can click it right here, and I can see it, but you can't. Sorry, guys. Right. So yeah, I would just say, Minnow, don't lose hope, because like you are. What did you say? 3 months being undiagnosed and not knowing personally 3 months ago. So I don't know whether that means that you are diagnosed, but like, give yourself time to process. You know, it might take a few months, but it is not like you're not a lost cause or anything like that. And I totally understand this feeling of regressing emotionally. Like I become a lot more childlike when I'm under stress. So just please take care of yourself as well. And I hope that some of the tips I can give you will be a little bit more helpful. Oh, you've got another comment saying brain fog is the worst. Yes, it is the worst. I don't know why I can put that one on, but not the other one. I'm really sorry. I've just seen another one saying she doesn't have a Dutch accent because she isn't Dutch. That is correct. I'm not Dutch, but my English accent has changed since living in the Netherlands. It's become more of a European English, which is mixed. European English is, I'm not going to get into this now, but this is like European English has got a lot of Americanisms in terms of vocabulary. So there are now things that I forget what is the correct way of saying it. Like, I remember I was having this big thing where I couldn't remember what the word for stroller is in English, like in British English, and stroller. And I don't know what we would call it, like a pushchair, a buggy, but I ended up just calling it a stroller because that just seemed the best word. So yeah, when your native language changes to a slightly different native language, that's a bit weird. There's many things that are weird about living in a foreign country. Right, let me go back to, sorry, the thing is I'm reading off my notes, which is why I'm like missing comments and stuff like that. So I'm really glad that I have my moderator to, she's messaging me. She's like, there's a super chat, pay attention to it. Attention, isn't that fun? So I was talking about the daily stuff, analyzing your life as a whole, analyzing periods of your life where peaks and troughs, as it were, and then talking about daily patterns. So for example, I had this thought like, okay, so I'm sure there are people out there who are smokers, or maybe you vape. And if you are, what are the triggers that make you step out for a cigarette? What makes you kind of like, I need to get out of here kind of thing? And if you make a note of that, it's not just helpful in like addiction kind of stuff. Maybe it's an autistic stressor that's doing that. Maybe it's too much sound. Maybe it's just after a meeting where you've had to mask a lot and be very social. So what is it? That might be helpful. I'm not saying anyone should start smoking to find out what makes them smoke, but I'm saying that if you are, that could be a good way of noticing what happens right before. Another daily pattern that you could examine that I think is very common for people who mask very heavily is that you kind of make it through the day, and then by the end of it, you are just collapsed. So you come in the door, you've been either a day at school or, a day at work, and you come in the door and you just collapse and you can't do anything. You can't be bothered to make dinner. You can't do anything like that. Or you get just very emotional and very kind of aggressive and irritable with your family members or the people you live with. And so that's another pattern as well, because that is more indicative that there is something in your life that is sort of chronically stressing you out. And that is something that you may want to look at with regards to some of the changes that you might make. So, what you're analyzing your daily things. What are the triggers that are like, what are the things that are triggering you on a daily basis? What are the things that have happened just before bad periods in your life? Are you masking way more than you'd like to admit? And is that wearing you down, quite frankly? Maybe you're unable to set boundaries and say no to people. I'm very bad at setting boundaries. I recently turned off my DMs on Instagram because that was like a boundary I wanted to set, and immediately felt incredibly guilty because people would write me in the comments being like, you turned off your messages. I'm like, no, I know, I had to. And that makes it, see, that's already like, I get slightly, not aggressive, I get slightly agitated by people saying that because I set down a boundary and now I'm feeling worried about it, feeling tense about it. And so autistic people typically are not great at setting boundaries. And maybe we also tend to be people pleasers. And the people pleasing aspect is really something that can lead to burnout. Examining your patterns as well, not just the patterns in your life or the patterns in day to day, but examining your patterns. You know, if somebody comes to you being like, oh, I just need a favor, are you going to say yes to them because you just want to be a nice person? Because fine, it's fine on that one off, but first of all, is that person asking you lots of favors? But are you just generally overextending yourself? You know, and so these are the patterns that you can start to build up an idea of what's going on in your life. Hello and welcome to the wind chime system, my newest member, and you get a fancy green name now. That's exciting, isn't it? A few of you are asking about the Discord. That is available to my green members. Well, they're all green members, but you know, the Yo Soundians. So if you click the join button, you can have a look at that. It's a really it's a growing community now, actually. I think we've got about 100 people almost in it. So that might be a nice thing for some of you to join. So thank you to the wind chime system. I really struggle with all these different names sometimes. Oh, right. So I was talking about patterns, pattern recognition. We are stereotypically good at pattern recognition. I think I'm pretty good at pattern recognition, actually. Maybe that's why I've been good at analyzing my life. I don't know whether some people might find it difficult. But those are some possible patterns that you might identify in your life as reasons that, when not addressed, will build up to autistic burnout. So things that happen in your life that maybe you don't have control over. That's one thing. Or big changes that you kind of do have control over, like starting university might be a big change. You decided to do that. You have control over it, but you didn't necessarily realize what it would entail. So it's a big stressor that, when combined with all the day-to-day stuff, might result in burnout, might result in you having to, you know, quit halfway through or something like that. So the analyzing patterns part, I think, is probably the most important, because otherwise you'll just be kind of like repeating yourself over and over again, and you won't get anywhere. I've got another new member. Hello, Honeyfungus90 became a YouTube member. Hello and welcome. For the new members, once you've joined the Yo Soundians, you scroll down on the community tab, you can find the link to the Discord. I will post another one at the top, because obviously as I've been posting stuff, it goes down. So yes. Now, Rob says, often less said, the better. And I hope that, I hope that's not referring to me. I don't think it is. But I also kind of had to talk because it's just me today. It's just me. It's actually, now that I've had a few lives where there've been other people there, my gosh, it's so much easier having those, because it's like you're just having a conversation, you happen to be filmed. Whereas now it's like, really, these ones by myself are really intense, actually. And as you can tell, the focus is really difficult. So once you analyze the patterns, you have to look at what you can change. And the thing is that these might not be comfortable, and they might not be easy changes for you or for the people around you. You might also say things like, if somebody were to say, well, this is going really wrong in my life and this is causing me loads of stress, and I'd say, well, okay, change it. I mean, I wouldn't be that flippant with you, dear viewers. Would I, though? Probably, but I wouldn't mean it. But you might say like, oh, well, I can't possibly change that. And I guess the unpalatable truth is that you might have to if you want to avoid burnout. And you might have to take a look at things in your life that you see as very fixed and permanent, and actually realize that everything has the potential for change. And so part of this, obviously we're resistant to change, aren't we? But part of you kind of, I guess, developing a burnout recovery kit. It's like a first aid kit, but it goes on forever. It's a form of radical self-care. And when I say radical self-care, like, I don't mean like self-care like taking bubble baths, although I really find I had an amazing bath this morning. But radical means like this isn't something that's going to be easy. This is going to involve change. It's going to involve things that might be difficult. That's what I mean by radical self-care. But what that means together is that everything you do has to be directed at healing yourself. And that and everything that you have to do has to be with that in mind. You need to be thinking, what are the things that you need on a daily basis that you aren't getting? What do you need? Because what you need is often not what you think it is. And, maybe you need 2 hours of silence in the morning. Okay, if you have a child, that might not be practical. And actually, I promised I'd talk about motherhood. So maybe now is a good time to do that. People are asking how to become a member. There should be a join button next to the subscribe button that hopefully is already pressed. If you're not already subscribed, then please subscribe. Gosh, I've just realized I've got 368 people watching. This is like maybe not my best live, I'm afraid. Some of my lives vary in terms of how my brain and my talking seems to function. Somebody's talking about wrong cannabis information, and I have missed that chat, so I'm not sure. Not sure about what's going on with that. But obviously, like medical advice, try and seek medical advice with professionals, hopefully professionals who know what they're doing. Everyone's saying, oh my gosh, you found the join buttons. Great, guys. New members, yay. Oh, I can end you one at a time. Holiday, welcome. And Poyo, I hope I said that right. Welcome to the club. And oh, there's another one, Agnes. Hello, welcome. I'll sort you out in the Discord later, by the way. This person says, GN, who is a shark, just wanted to say hi and thank you for the energy you put in your videos. Thank you. It's completely unintentional. I said at the beginning, this was going to be a really chill video. Oh dear. Yeah, all the best intentions, eh? This is complete a side thought. I actually read a study the other day that said that ADHD symptoms are linked to fluctuations in female hormones, which is yet another tick mark for me suspecting ADHD in myself, because the symptom, like about a week ago, I had such severe symptoms that I was just sitting on the sofa and I was like, my brain was just whirring inside me and I had to turn my phone off. I had to turn everything off and just be in silence because my brain was just going. And so that makes a lot of sense. Which would also, oh my gosh, new members. Right, who was the last new member I welcomed? Welcome to the Canadian Rockies, all of you, hopefully. Welcome, Canadian Rockies. I have been in you before. That sounds wrong. I have been in you before. I went to Lake Louise once and it was absolutely beautiful and I would love to go back to Canada. I love Canada. I don't know what that means, but I feel like it's a private joke that I should get. So I'm putting a private joke, members only joke, members club, very, very exclusive. Welcome to another member, Arash Arfazadeh. Arash Arfazadeh. I think that's as close as I'm going to get. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. It must absolutely crack you guys up to hear me attempt to pronounce international names on a regular basis. Whew. Eleonora says, I like this live because it's you alone. It's a bit overwhelming, the chat and the guests. That's a lot going on. That's true. Yeah, you have to pay attention to two people and the chat. So I should pull some members onto the feed. I had thoughts about doing that this time, Katie, and I just didn't I didn't get around to it. Yes. As discussed, Anna has said to me privately, I'm allowing you to self-diagnose as ADHD, and I still feel very mixed about that, because I'm a complete proponent. I'm saying, like, yes, of course, self-diagnosis is valid for everyone except me. I couldn't possibly do that. That would be awful. I don't know. I've got to work through some stuff of my own. Essentially, I'm 90% there about the ADHD. But I'm already at the stage where I'm trying to not necessarily heal it, as in it'll go away, but manage it better. But I'm going to talk about that in a future video. Have I talked about Meltdown Mandy says, I have ADHD too. My brain doesn't stop. It's either go, go, go or brain fog city. Yeah. The only times I've had very calm brain has been like after holidays, after lots and lots of rest, after lots of detachment from social media, or after psilocybin, actually. Psilocybin helps a lot, microdosing, but that's also for another video. I might do a members video on that. Now you can tell that I am starting to talk really quickly, which means that I probably need a break. Grey Bow says, yay, I've caught you live. Heart emojis. Thank you. Cool. I would love to see Canada someday, like the improved version of America. I don't know who that's offensive to or whether that's offensive, but that made me laugh, actually. Cool. Right. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. There is just like so much going on. Yes. New member. Right. I can see the new member. Welcome, Karina Hirnkamp Alvarenga. This is like, I feel like this is now testing my ability to be multilingual. I think that sounds Brazilian. I'm gonna guess Brazilian. Karina Hirnkamp Alvarenga. Actually, no, I think that is Brazilian. So I'm just being silly now. Oh my gosh, so many new members. Brandon Moles, welcome. Gary says, do you prefer dragon or robots? I don't know whether that's directed at me. I prefer dragons. I like How to Train Your Dragon. That was a good film, but I did not like the spin-off shows, although the sequel was okay. Right. Oh, no, that's not. Now the chat's. I found a chat that was helpful, and now I've. Can you shortly give a few reasons to why you suspect I have ADHD? I think what I'll do, rather than talking about that now, is I'm going to make a video coming up at some point where I do the ADHD test, like I did the autism test, and just see what I get. I have talked to professionals, so I don't have an official diagnosis, but I've spoken to enough professionals who've been like, yeah, it kind of sounds like it. Essentially, my type of ADHD is not a physical hyperactive one. I don't know whether it's inattentive exactly. I think it's probably more of a combo. But I will talk about that later. And I also want to talk about the combination of having both autism and ADHD, because I think that is something that's also not really commonly discussed, and it's very common. So basically the answer to that was later. Blah, blah, blah. Was there, another member. Now this is Rack 1280. Became a YouTube member. Right. I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm just looking at the time. We've been on this for quite a while. What is everybody doing? Are you like making dinner and watching this? I don't know what people do when they watch lives. Now, somebody said something about medication, and Aleph-O says, you need a formal diagnosis to obtain medication. Now, the reason that I am not pursuing an ADHD diagnosis actively is because in the Netherlands, you do not need a formal diagnosis necessarily. You might be able to get medicated with ADHD meds with with an autism diagnosis and for autistic symptoms, traits, or whatever. So that is the reason why I haven't pursued. If I was in another country, I might, but I also haven't decided whether I want to take meds or not yet. So this is going to be a process in the next few months. So I'm hoping there'll be a couple of videos on that. ADHD is not being able to choose where your attention goes. Yeah, exactly. Like when a notification pops down there and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then my brain is hyperactive. So I'm like, is my sound off? And nobody tells me my sound is on, like what happened in the first part of this live. I've calmed down a little bit from that. I think I've calmed down. There is so much. Right. Okay. So I was actually on tips. I feel like I haven't really got much to the tips, but so many of, I don't want to say like top tips for avoiding burnout, because it's going to be personal. It's going to be related to what is your actual situation, because burnout, an autistic mother is not going to be the same as burnout from somebody who works in a cafe and has to deal with like people and the public all the time. It's going to be completely different from person to person. So the analysis side of things is actually more helpful than any quick and easy tips I can give you. And the things that you need on a daily basis, if you know what they are that you need that you're not getting, your recovery should be targeting those. You should be targeting not just your body, not just physical exhaustion, but mental, emotional exhaustion, because all of these are affected by autistic burnout. It's not just have a few days of good sleep and then you'll be unburnt out. That is not how it works. It's more like that scene in The Lion King, when the fire's been raging on Pride Rock and everything is charred and the rains come and it grows. Everything goes green again. It's more like that. Yeah, it's not like flick a switch and everything's great. So I just wanted to reiterate that it is a process, but it's a healing process. And you should be listening also to what you need, and you might need to listen to a voice that has been pushed way down inside you, not what other people say you need or what you think you should need. And so, as I mentioned, I've been kind of teetering on the verge of burnout probably most of this year without actually going into a full burnout. And there are a few things that I'm doing. Now, these are tips that they might not be relevant for you, but these are what I'm doing for me that can give you kind of an idea of like what you can do to build this burnout recovery kit, we'll call it. So focusing on the mind, obviously as a thinking I have ADHD person, I'm sure there's a fancy name for that, suspected ADHD. My mind is kind of a chaotic place. And the thing that for me exacerbates that is social media. And that is ironic because I don't know whether YouTube really counts as social media. I don't see it as social media, but on all the other platforms, it's like everybody's voices get into my head and they stay there and they start taking up space. And so I don't know if you're familiar with this idea of like monkey chatter, the chattering monkeys in your head. For me, if I'm on social media personally, that's what happens. But it's not my monkeys, it's someone else's monkeys. So I've been taking a lot of breaks that maybe are not that noticeable because I do try and schedule things. But I know that I need to manage this because this isn't just about like, oh, I've got to upload stuff because, it's not work if you're scrolling through your phone. Like, I don't care who says that there's any justification. That's not work, is it? So if I'm avoiding social media, I need to upload it and I need to reply to things and then I need to switch off. But unfortunately, my brain doesn't really work that way. So I've been working on ways to manage this. Sorry, that was a very abrupt ending. You can see once you see the ADHD in me, you'll notice. And now I'm going to get self-conscious about that. So actually, one of the first videos on this channel, I think maybe the third video that I did on this channel is about me trying to cut back on social media. And I've been trying to do this my whole life. Well, since social media became a thing, because it just sucks you in again. It's designed to do that. And so that's something that is one of my things, right? Especially now, because we're all stuck. I'm stuck at home. And, you know, the tendency is to try and socialize through social media, and it doesn't work for me. So that's kind of like, I realize that, I recognize that, and now I have to deal with it. It's the dealing with it that's not so fun. So on the subject of mind, my brain also needs a lot of stimulation. And when I am in a healthy place, generally, I read books for stimulation. But I can't read books when I'm in burnout because I can't read. So I end up reading articles for stimulation because it's still input going in, kind of thing. But the way that you reread articles, because I don't have like magazines and newspapers and stuff, reading online, they've done studies that show that people read in a different way. They scan rather than read. So they don't absorb information. You're just scanning for like, ooh, nugget of information, but you're not actually reading. So when it comes to picking up a book, you know, it's like you read the same paragraph over and over and you're like, I can't read this book. So you close it. And that's one of the signs for me is when I can't read anymore, that's how I know that I'm close to burnout, because I can't concentrate, you know, on reading it. Might also be a sign of ADHD, that, you know, like a hormonal thing as well. So that's kind of like, for me, the mind stuff. And as I said, you know, you need to focus on the mind, the body, and the emotions. And in terms of body, I think that especially as we are, I don't want to say different, we are sensitive in different ways. We are hypersensitive or hyposensitive. I veer on the hypersensitive side. But I think we've all been in situations in life where we kind of learned to ignore our body's needs because it's not socially acceptable to react in that way or to feel pain from that stimuli or something. And so for me, the sensory, actually during this year, since lockdown, the sensory stuff has become easier for me. Because I'm not going out into crowded places as much. There are no crowded places. Well, actually there are in the Netherlands, but that's why the numbers are rising in the Netherlands. So, you know, I'm not going out, I'm not doing the normal things. So my sensory environment is now my home. And I can control that, with the glaring exception of my son. I can't control my son, and nor should I, actually. And so that is something that I need to manage. I need to manage a way that I don't get overwhelmed by the noise of a 3-year-old having fun or being upset or something like that. Because if I get triggered, if I get triggered by the noise, I react in a way that is not how I would want to react. And it's not how I would decide to parent, but it is a completely instinctive reaction. And so, you know, that's just one example of needing to manage your sensory triggers. So I've been wearing a lot of headphones, but I find that also makes me feel like I'm switching off. And sometimes, well, kids are very sensitive. They realize when you're trying to shut them out, even if it's just shutting out the noise. And so I think for my son, I think he's actually been a little bit upset that I've been wearing those. And, you know, you can wear earplugs, but they still know that you can't really hear them or you don't want to hear them. And so it is very difficult to manage your sensory needs as a parent, especially as a parent to small children. And I think that is part of the reason why, you know, so many autistic parents go into burnout, because there is just no getting away with it, getting away from it. And there's no getting away with it either. do you know what? I do this exact same thing when I'm filming my videos. I stop talking and then I go, and then I take a breath. And this is something I only notice when I'm editing them, but then I realize it sounds really weird when I'm just talking by myself, and then I just go, and stop. It's because I run out of the thing, and then I'm like, oh, I need a breath now. I promised this would be chill, and I feel like I've let you guys down. I'm sorry, but I've let myself down more. We're talking about the body and what you can do for your body. Exercise is a good one, and I think finding an exercise that works for you is the most important, because I have tried so much throughout my life. I used to be a gymnast because hypermobility, you know, and now I've started doing weekly Pilates reformer classes, the ones with the exciting BDSM kind of machinery. And, you know, I've been doing I think I've done 6 weeks or so, and already the difference in my body and my levels of pain, my joints and stuff like that has been incredible. So I can really recommend that. And it's also completely socially distanced, so it's perfect. Yeah, and I think for hypermobile people, that one works. But just, it feels really good to exercise in a really calm environment that doesn't involve actually getting with a lot of loud music, because most exercise classes have loud music to motivate you, which is kind of the opposite. But, you know, coming into autumn, winter, you know, people say, well, go for walks. But if you are very sensitive to the cold or the rain, like maybe you don't want to go for walks in the winter. So it's just about finding something for your body that fits in. And that's one part. Exercise is one part. It's not the whole part of caring for your body. Obviously, caring for your body involves eating right and sleeping right. Two things which can be very difficult to do if you're not feeling yourself, if you are burnt out. And that's just something that you need to try and deal with more on an individual basis. You know, I've been talking now for an hour and a half, which is bless you all for staying with me so long. But you know, I could do a whole video on how to eat right when you're in burnout, how to organize your food, plan your shopping, plan your meals. It requires a lot of executive functioning skills that you might not have at that point. But if eating right helps you feel better, it might be something that you have to prioritize. You might have to think of different ways of doing things. So you breaking things down into just incredibly small steps. So instead of saying, I'm going to meal plan for a month and batch cook everything, which just sounds like a superwoman achievement, you might say, I'm going to go and find one recipe online that I want to try, or I want to batch cook, and I'm going to print it out. And that is going to be my thing. Break it down into really small, achievable steps. And you sit there and you yeah, I printed this recipe out. This is awesome. Because then you have the recipe, you can take the next step, which is looking in your cupboard and seeing, do I have all these ingredients? You know? So it's like breaking each thing down, because I really believe, especially for autistic people, eating right and sleeping right are so important to get right. But I don't think I've got time to go into that now, to be honest. The sleeping has been an issue for me throughout my life, but especially since pregnancy and having a child, because my son went through this phase where he would wake up 3 times in the night, sometimes screaming. You know, I think it was nightmares, around 18 months, something like that. And that primed my body to be anxious around the time he would wake up first, which was 10:30. So I would be getting to bed 9:30, 10, trying to get an early-ish night. And I would start feeling anxious because I was already sensing. And so it's very easy for my sleep to get disturbed. But, you know, I'm going to talk about baths and self-care now, baths, Epsom salt baths. Oh my God, I had one this morning and it was fantastic. It was infused with lavender. It was just absolutely lush. And I just, I can't believe it's taken me almost 35 years to discover Epsom salt baths, but it left my skin feeling amazingly soft. I'm going to rave about them probably at every chance I can get. And I always joke about self-care is more than baths, but actually sometimes self-care is baths. Yeah. So, oh gosh, my throat is tired. This is a sign that I feel like I've almost been talking too long. But so I'm going to just start moving along the notes a little bit. So emotions. We've talked about mind and body, things to focus on, emotions. I'm someone who struggles to understand my own emotions. And I did a video on alexithymia ages ago now, which might be of interest, which is kind of like the inability to always name your emotions, not really know what you're feeling. And actually, I feel like have improved at that in the year or so since I made that video. And I do think that it's impossible to make progress, to improve your ability to recognize emotions, but it takes work, much like all of this takes work, unfortunately. And, you know, the trauma video that I did a couple of weeks ago kind of released something in me that wasn't exactly like releasing the trauma, but released like the memory of the trauma, and just made me very aware of like my emotional reactions to things. Since that video, actually, I feel like I've been reacting more emotionally to things. And, you know, I'm autistic. I consider myself an HSP, which is a highly sensitive person, which may or may not be the same thing as an autistic person. I consider myself an empath in the way that, you know, like, I'm more betazoid than most people, but like I'm deeply sensitive to other people's emotions and vibes and stuff like that. And my reality now is that I'm getting comments and I'm getting chats from people who are all carrying pain around. And I have to recognize the emotional toll that takes on me. Obviously, it has emotional tolls on everyone else. They're the ones with the actual pain. But I have to recognize that I'm the sort of person that absorbs it all. And so that's part of like the setting boundaries thing. Working out how to deal with that. Knowing yourself is the key. Knowing that you are like this, knowing that you need to set boundaries and take steps to adjust your reaction or shield yourself essentially from other people's emotions or other people's vibes. So the last thing I want to talk about is the environment. I've put the environment / other people. Other people, of course, being notoriously difficult to change, however much we might try. Your environment might be a bit easier to change than other people. So probably most of us are in atypical environments right now. And that might actually be a good opportunity to see what's changed in your life since 2020. We went into lockdown. Some people everybody's changed something in some way about their life. And maybe your reaction to that, you can see, well, actually, I'm feeling better now because I'm not in my office every day. You know, like I can control this environment. That's great. And so you can really identify it is the office environment that is causing the burnout, whether that is maybe the commute, which was a big thing for me when I was commuting into London. You know, I was like commuting 2 hours a day, and that was really horrible for me. I hated that. No, it wasn't 2 hours a day. No, it was less than that. But it was still pretty awful. Waterloo and the Waterloo and City line, it was like, yeah, rush hour. No. That's a very niche. Only people who've ridden the stop on the Waterloo and City will know what I'm talking about. But, you know, maybe you're doing worse during the pandemic because you're still working, you're still having to work in the same workplace, but you've got way more stress. You're having to wear a mask all day and deal with entitled idiots. I mean, the entitled idiots might be the same, but, you know, you might have extra stresses in that place of work and you can identify those. It's like, okay, the mask is a sensory thing and I'm having to wear that all day. That's a lot. That's not really how we're meant to be. That's difficult. So at the end of the day, I would say that recovering from and preventing burnout is about analyzing yourself, finding the patterns in your life and realizing what you need to do, but also realizing that you are the only one who can make the changes because other people are not going to change your life for you to make it easier. They might help you if you say that, but you have to tell them what you need. And to tell them what you need, you have to know what you need. And so I've put here in bold, actually, you are the captain of your vessel and ultimately the one in charge of its course, which sounded very good when I wrote it, but sounds quite weird to say out loud. So this is getting to be quite a long live. Let me just check that I missed anything more in the chat. Maybe Voldemort says, whenever I'm in London for work, I walk everywhere, including from Whitehall to King's Cross, just to avoid the tube. I think my colleagues think I'm mental. Yes. I mean, if I was like ludicrously rich, I would probably just take taxis everywhere, but then you end up stuck in traffic. So walking in London, when I lived there, I really liked walking around London, apart from the noise. I think Vagabond really wants me to chill because he or she, they say, I'm the chill captain of my chill vessel. This is me on a chill day, actually. No, it's not. I'm medium levels worked up today, I would say. So I'm going to answer some questions. Some of these are pre-recorded, not exactly, but pre-vetted, let's say. One person has asked, is it possible to be in burnout for years without actually crashing completely? For context, I describe myself as having been in survival mode since my first child was born 8 years ago. And I wonder if this is burnout. Any other comments from a parenting perspective? So I did promise I'd get to parenting, and this is kind of like why I was leaving it for this question. I totally relate to that feeling of being in survival mode. And I don't know whether it's a question of like, I don't know why this term, I keep on thinking of like high functioning burnout. Is high functioning burnout, like, is that going to be offensive to anyone? I don't know. Is high functioning burnout offensive? Let me know in the chat right now. High functioning burnout, that sounds weird. But I guess what I mean is that you are burnt out, but you still live your life. Because when you have a child, you sort of have to. If you're autistic, why are you a parent in the first place? That's kind of an insulting question, I would say. But like, you have to step up when you're a parent. And the problem is that some people, if you can't step up when you're burning out, that means that other people will have to get involved, whether that is the other parent, whether that is your family members, whether that is perhaps even social services. I think most people would probably realize that it's better not to get into that situation. So if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you can avoid that just about, but it comes at the expense of yourself. And so I would say that it is possible to be in burnout without and still be functioning in everyday life. And let's see what I wrote, because I did actually write out some notes because actually, as I mentioned earlier in this chat, I think that sorry, you can tell I'm starting to get a little bit tired now because it's almost my bedtime. You guys know I go to sleep at 10 o'clock. Going through a burnout was part of the reason why I realized that I was autistic in the first place, was because it exacerbated the autistic traits and all of that kind of stuff. And the problem is that when you are kind of burning out while autistic and a parent, and you express your difficulties, people say helpful things like, well, that's just life. That's just parenting. If you can't handle this, you shouldn't be a parent, which I think is what somebody in the comments just said. You had to put other people first as a parent. And it's like, well, first of all, I didn't know I was autistic when I got pregnant. Thanks. But this is all just shaming. Like, this is shaming an autistic person for struggling with something that's difficult. We're not meant to be parents in isolation, in isolated nuclear families. We're meant to be in communities. We're meant to live among people who will help. Like, this idea of we should all just be shut in our rooms and you can be parenting right now, and if you can't handle that, then you just a failure. That's just, how do we think that is how parenting should be? Of course it should be a community thing. And I think that is part of the reason why not just autistic parents are burning out, especially at the moment where there is just so much parenting to be done. I mean, yeah, and the problem is that all of these things are not helpful. All of these comments that people say, well, if you can't handle this, just, it all boils down to somebody saying, well, just suck it up, buttercup, kind of thing. And it's like, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And that's how you end up on burnout. And so, like, this approach is not helpful. It's not helping anyone. Ooh, my voice is breaking now. I would just like to point out that autistic people can make wonderful parents, and they often raise children who can empathize and accept people with their difficulties. So there we go. Somebody said, thank you for shaming the shamer. Good boundaries, Sam. And do you know what? I feel really anxious about the fact that I did that, because I feel like, what if they didn't mean that or whatever? But you know what? Like, this whole idea of like, why, if you struggle so much, why do you want to be a parent? Like, or if someone said to me like, oh, well, if you're struggling so much with one child, why would you want to have another? It's like, maybe you want another child, maybe you want a child to have a sibling, kind of thing. Like, first of all, it's nobody's business, is it? But the world is not set up to be kind to autistic people, and autistic parents certainly don't figure into that. So this culture of I should just suck it up is dangerous, because for me, I end up thinking I should just do that. And that is when I stop taking care of myself. And whether that is literally like not showering or whatever, because I feel like I don't have time, even though I do have time, I just need to make the time. Or something like, you know, I've been spending so much energy. My son went through a growth spurt over summer, which is, you know, to be expected from a 3-year-old. And I spend so much energy making sure that he's got all the right amounts of clothes, and he's got winter boots. Well, actually, I haven't bought those yet, but like he's got the wellies and he's got the waterproof trousers and he's got everything. And then I went out today and I'm like, I don't even have a raincoat that's properly waterproof. Like, it's too short, it's leaking. Like, I am not taking care of myself. And I realized that today. And I got home and I'm like, I am buying a raincoat and I'm taking care of myself. And it sounds silly, but I forget to do things like that. So I get annoyed. And the thing is having a good raincoat will make me a better parent, because when it's raining outside, which it does in the Netherlands, if you don't know, it's an extremely wet country, which makes it all the more ridiculous that I don't have a raincoat. Just so you know, like when it's raining outside and my son goes, I want to go out the front, I'll be like, no, you know, and it just sets this awful tone. But me taking care of myself, buying myself a raincoat that, by the way, kind of looks like a cool witch raincoat because it's long and awesome, and I'll probably share a picture of it on Instagram. But, you know, like buying something for myself like that makes me a better parent, because it means that I'll go out with my son instead of just being like, no, let's just stay in and do something inside. I will be like, no, I can go out because I won't get wet and cold and miserable. So there you go. This is a very important point. Please remember that no one is perfect. No one. The perfect parent does not exist. You can only try your best. Yeah, so yeah, I totally agree. This person says, I relate. I don't have waterproof shoes. I hike for exercise. Yes. And you get wet feet, I bet. I know, because I'm the same. I suffer, and I just don't think, hey, I could just treat myself. It's not even treating, it's just taking care of yourself. Having waterproof stuff is taking care of yourself. Okay. Here we go. Stephanie Bethany says, life is hard, yet we keep living. We are disabled, yet we do our best to live our lives. Deciding that something being difficult more so for us than others means we shouldn't do it, it's a bit silly. Yeah, I mean, like doing YouTube stuff, like that's hard. It's probably harder for me to stay organized than for other people. I think there was another question about like, how do you do YouTube stuff and avoid burnout that I just missed? And it's like, should I not be on YouTube because it's like super stressful to keep everything organized and keep up with all the work? Like, no, because it's worth doing. And it's like, should I not be a parent because I get burnt out? Like, no, because I love my son and it's totally worth doing. It's just really, really difficult for now. So yeah, this mentality that like you have to be perfect or you can't be a parent, it's like, okay, no. Liz says, having waterproof stuff is taking care of yourself. It is if you live in the Netherlands. It is. All right. Let me just see how far I've got on my notes. Do you know what? I've got to page 7 of my, it's now 8 pages of notes. Let me just see about some questions. I feel like a lot of the questions that I got on Instagram, I kind of answered them within the context of this, even though I haven't asked it directly. And saying, somebody asked, what's the difference between physical tiredness and autistic burnout, and can they overlap? And I would say that physical tiredness is solved by resting and sleeping, you know, like take a week off work or go on holiday, like have a rest. And physical tiredness, as long as they're not an underlying medical condition, physical tiredness will heal. Whereas with autistic burnout, I feel like you can sleep and sleep and sleep and you just never seem to feel rested. You never seem to feel better. So that's kind of like the difference for that. A lot of people asked how to read the warning signs. And I think that I think that just goes back into the whole system of analyzing. You know, I think it's unrealistic to expect that you're suddenly going to just be able to see, oh, what's this warning sign? Like, you have to listen to yourself. You have to self-reflect. Everybody's warning signs are going to be different. For me, it's that I'm irritable. I get irritated by things that are not irritating, as discussed earlier. Can't sleep, can't concentrate, brain fog, executive functioning, all that kind of stuff. All of that stuff was happening to me in July, and that was why I decided to take 6 weeks or so off making, you know, regular YouTube videos. And that really helped for a bit. I did other things as well. I did a little bit of microdosing psilocybin, as I mentioned in another video. I can't remember which one. But I didn't do it. I didn't like commit to it. So that might be something that I'll revisit in the future. I did a lot of spending time outdoors. We went on a little mini vacation within the Netherlands, you know. And so like, that was me realizing that, hey, if I don't stop now, I'm going to get burnt out. And I'm just going to say, I don't want to do YouTube. And I want to carry on doing YouTube. I like doing YouTube, even when it's stressful sometimes. But, you know, it's just like, it's just, I don't want to say trial and error, because it's not trial and error. It's understanding your patterns, and you have to do a lot of deep diving work. So there's no easy way to say, well, this is a trigger or that's a trigger. You have to just analyze the heck out of your life, I guess. What I do is I also talk and forget to breathe. And now I'm like, whew, well, I'm out of breath. Whew, that's a symptom of corona, isn't it? Oh, I'm not going to start. Sorry, I'm going to start with the bad jokes about coronavirus. There were a couple of comments about special interests causing burnout. And I do think that that is a possibility, especially when you get really hyper-focused on something new and you're like, I want to do this forever. I want to do only this. And that is also a recipe for burnout, because especially if maybe your special interest is also like a work interest, it's very easy to overdo it. And I think that you need to balance special interests with like life and care stuff as well. I hope that makes sense. I've now run out of water. I've been talking too much, too fast. So let's really try. I feel like I've missed some chats. The person that I kind of sassed, and I was a bit like, that's an offensive comment. I don't think that this person meant to be offensive, but I'm lost on the chat. So I'm really sorry. I have been offending everybody inadvertently, and everyone has been offending me. But I think that is also, I feel like we're all in a little bit of burnout right now. 2020 wise, you know, it's been 6 months or so since the pandemic kind of started and we went into lockdown, and it's really hard to keep your head in a good space when that happens. And I think we all just need to appreciate that we're all on edge. You know, nothing is going to get better sooner. Like we're going now into autumn, winter. It's all going, we need to focus so much on this self-care stuff, which is why I think this is so important. And I hope that I'm not being too, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm very paranoid about offending people, because I have offended people in the past completely unknowingly. And that's been kind of traumatic, especially when it's been friends that I've definitely not meant to. So that's a little bit of a sensitive spot. So I apologize to anyone that I've hurt who feels hard done by. Somebody says, I'm part of the Skin is Waterproof Brigade. Waterproof's overrated. Yeah, rain is cold. It's like, yeah, it's waterproof, but you still have to feel the wet. That's the thing, isn't it? Somebody asked, do you have a medical background? Your channel seems to indicate you might. I have a psychology degree. So I do have a background in psychology, and I have a master's degree in sociology and anthropology, of specializing in religion. So that doesn't make me qualified to practice psychology, but it does make me qualified to speculate wildly about psychology on the internet. But I feel like I put a lot of disclaimers in my videos for this exact reason. So I don't want to mislead anyone that think I just have I like researching stuff, you know, And so I just have the sort of brain that I like finding out things about it and categorizing interests. It's almost like I might be a bit autistic. Let's see what other what other comments we have. Gary says, if a genie asks you 3 wishes, would one of those wishes be, can I have a day off being autistic? If I got 3 wishes, no. I wouldn't ask to be not autistic. I would ask to have like, I would go for a day off not being anxious. The anxiety is the anxiety is the thing that I find really hard, especially at the moment. I'm very anxious at the moment. I feel like I've got some kind of like sticker or something, but it's not coming up. I got a something or other from Miro. Well, thank you very much, Miro, but I can't see it on my screen. Some technical issues. Do I normally get technical issues? I feel like I deal with it a lot, but it's just it's a lot to run everything, even when you have like a stream software thing that I do. Right, I have been chatting for almost 2 hours, and you know what that means, right? That means it is bedtime. And I promised you at the beginning that this was going to be like super chill. I had my herbal tea and I'm feeling really chill. And now I'm like, So I don't know what it is about lives that get me very energetic. I guess I like that. It's a lot of people talking at once. Okay. So, back to that person, the parenting with autism question. The person's post began with sharing trauma related to her parent leaving due to that autism. So I'm really sorry. I did not mean to be like, that's so offensive. I do not take offense. Like, I understand context is everything. I just saw the comment and was like, that's a bit, rubbed me up the wrong way. So I apologize for that. I'm always willing to apologize if I make mistakes, guys. You know me. It's just, you would not believe how energy intensive it is to do these things. So a huge thank you and welcome to all my new members. I hope some of you are still listening. A thank you to my old members as well. You guys are cool too, I guess. And thank you for everybody who's been participating in the chat. I mean, we are still over 300. I think this might be one of the biggest live streams I've ever done. And in some ways, I'm a bit like, was it the best though? Probably not. But this is just real life. This is unscripted for the most part. I've got my notes, but like formulating sentences as discussed. Female hormones affect ADHD symptoms. They affect neurotransmitters, and I really notice during like certain times of cycles, I just feel very much more ADHD than other times of the month. So it's something that I have been thinking about a lot because it is starting to affect me more. And this is even with treatment for PMDD. So it's just, things have been a little bit, I don't want to say things have been hard because things have been all right. It's just, things have been a little bit heavy, but it's heavy for everyone. So that's why I'm trying to do these deep topics, because the trauma video was really well received by you guys, and so many people saying like, I'm so glad you did this topic. It's so important. Nobody did it. And I felt really good. I was really, Anna helped me do the research for that one, and she did an amazing job. And then I put it all together and like wrote the script and stuff. And it's like, I'm really proud of how that came out. And I want to do more of these deep dive videos that take a little bit more research and a little bit more time to put together. But it's also like, I have to balance that up so that's why I followed up with the Love on the Spectrum one. Cause it's like, okay, we need a little bit of lighthearted stuff. Because I can't just do like fully researched intellectual videos every week. Like I do not have the capacity for that, mental, physical, or emotional. And that trauma video, I was surprised. It brought up a lot within me, just writing about it from a very academic perspective. So, somebody said, it's really heavy, but chish. And I don't know what that means. But I feel like if I was going to write a comment, I would want it put up like this. Somebody says, oh, where did it go? I just clicked on it and it disappeared. Somebody says, I've been looking forward to the stream, but forgot. Would you restart? No, you can watch the replay. This person says, flower, I guess it is. You look really young for a mum. Thank you. I'm 21. I'm kidding. I'm not 21. I just want to say that because it gets funnier the older I get. I'm going to be 35 in November. Yeah. So that's a big birthday that nobody but me cares about, isn't it? That's the birthday where they start calling you geriatric if you get pregnant at that age. Geriatric pregnancy. Let's see what... this person says, how do you track your mood, what am I even saying? Mood and attention directing abilities to figure out whether and how hormones affect them? Well, I mean, I've started by a lot of tracking of hormones and stuff, tracking your cycles and then just noticing symptoms. And then basically last weekend, I sat down on the sofa and my brain was like, as well as all my PMS, PMDD symptoms. So I was like, well, this is pretty obvious correlation there, you know. Have a good night and get some rest. Yeah, I probably won't. I get pretty wired after these lives. Usually takes me about an hour to an hour and a half to actually wind down enough to get to sleep. But I do have some secret medicinal teas. That's not even a euphemism for cannabis. I'm actually talking about valerian root. I took it last night and it knocked me out. So that's not something you should mix with other medications because apparently it has a similar effect to benzos. But it's something that I've been kind of like just trying out because I thought, well, you know, I'm not on any other medication, so it's as good a time as any to try something like that before I go into thinking about the ADHD meds, which I still don't know. I haven't made up my mind if I want to try them yet. Somebody says, the things have been stodgy. That's how I feel about the world. It's pretty stodgy at the moment. I'm avoiding news as much as possible, just avoiding social media, you know. Oh, Jenny, thank you. Thank you for the super sticker. I can't see the actual sticker on my thing, but I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Janie Bug, that's a really cute name. I don't know if it's a real name. See, now I'm like, did I offend you? Is that a cute name? I don't know. Is that your real name? I think it's cute. It's a cute real name if it's real, and it's a cute nickname if it's not. You can tell me. Oh, hold on. I'm getting sent the super stickers that. Okay, so the super sticker that Jamie just sent me is so cute. It says you're amazing, and thank you so much. She just sent me the screenshot of it, so thank you for that. That's really cool. Right. Somebody said valerian hypes me up. I was like, no, it knocked me out completely. Last night I took it for the first time. Had a cup of it at about 7:30 after I put my son to bed. And then I wasn't really keeping track of time. I was like, oh man, I'm so tired. It's been such a good night. I'm going to go to bed. And I got myself ready, climbed into bed and looked at the clock. It was 8:30 and my eyes, like my pupils were dilated. I'm like, whoa, this stuff's good actually. And I slept pretty well. So that's not a medical recommendation. That's just telling you what happened to me, which is the story of my life in this channel, I guess, isn't it? Victoria Vague says, I wonder if that's your real name. Currently being assessed for ADHD at the moment. Definitely more ADHD around my period. Yeah, I think it's a thing. I read a study. It wasn't just an article. It was an actual science study that showed that. So, oh gosh, there's even more chats. Read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. I have actually read that, and maybe I should reread it because I do have it, I think. So it is very good and highly recommended to anyone if you just want to like not care about other people and things. I can also recommend, I'm reading some letters from a Stoic by Seneca at the moment, and the Stoic philosophy has also been very helpful for like helping me gain perspective on my life and stuff. So I like that kind of stuff. Somebody on one of the chats before also mentioned Taoism and like the Taoist philosophy and stuff like that. So that's something else that I would like to look into. when I can read again, which I'm starting to get to the point where I can now read books, which is fantastic because I have many, many books I need to read. I had to, well, I'm not quit my book club, but I just stopped going because I was like, I didn't want to admit it, but I can't read books, especially not fiction. Non-fiction, you can skim a bit more. You can't skim fiction. Whew. Right. What do you do to calm down before sleep? After a live, I typically go down, have some tea. I'll probably have my special valerian drug tea. It's legal, don't worry. For me, watching something helps, like watching Friends. Yeah, I could watch Friends. That would be a good idea, actually. Somebody says, be careful with psychosis and ADHD meds. It can be a nightmare. Yeah, I mean, the ADHD meds thing's a whole thing. There are side effects because they're all stimulants. And people say it changed my life, but they also have symptoms and stuff like that. So, you know, it's like, okay, maybe I need to manage other aspects. Maybe I can manage other aspects before I go down the medication route. So I don't know. But ADHD meds are like, you know, that's a decision I haven't made. Somebody says, light bulb moment. I'm so much more sensitive to light and sounds before my periods. We're talking about periods. I'm going to have a whole video on periods. So I bet the people who don't have periods are like, oh, great. They're not going to watch that one. Somebody says, I listen to the Stoics too. Audiobooks on YouTube. That's a great idea for when you can't read. Audiobooks of Stoics. Oh, I bet. Right. So I am going to probably have some tea. I'm going to say goodnight to all you beautiful people and apologize profusely for the people that I offended because I got worked up and couldn't concentrate and I got stressed and then I reacted and got agitated. And if that isn't like all ADHD in a nutshell, like the lack of, what's it called, inhibition and stuff like that, I don't know. And then offending people, obviously that's the autism. I just can't help offending people even when I'm not trying. But I appreciate your patience and your kind words telling me. I did see some nice ones saying like, you're doing great, Sam, thanks. So thank you. Wow, thank you for all the super chats and all the members. And I look forward to chatting to you more on Discord. I've been a little bit quiet on Discord for the reasons that I mentioned pretty much throughout this video, but I'm gonna try and be on it a little bit this weekend because it's quite nice to do some games like the Jackbox games. They were fun. Let's do them again. So everybody enjoy your day, your night. It's pitch black and it looks like a bit of I think it's a waxing gibbous moon now. It's definitely over the halfway point. Anyway, I can see the moon directly from my window. That was nice. Like I thought that would be kind of cool and I looked out and there it was. So sleep well, everybody, or enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you probably at the end of October for another live. If you have any suggestions for lives, please just comment on Instagram or something, or on the YouTube community tab. I usually try and like ask people, what do you want? What do you want? Oh, I'm going to breathe, drink some water, and catch you all later. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.